The Space Marine legions of old all have legacies that are fascinating. One, though, that has piqued my interest is that of the Luna Wolves and the Sons of Horus, who in my mind are not only incredibly interesting, but are two entirely separate entities both occupying the same space. These legions, often containing the same troops at one point or another, could not be more different. Where the Luna Wolves were noble, the Sons of Horus were savage. Where one fought for the Emperor's dream, the other sought to tear it apart. And after the end of the heresy, the Sons of Horus and Luna Wolves would cease to exist in any capacity. The Luna Wolves were the 16th Legion of Space Marines, and were easily one of the most famous legions of Space Marines during the Great Crusade. They earned their name during the Battle for Luna towards the end of the Unification Wars, where the surrendering commander told the Emperor to call off his wolves, earning them their namesake. It also helps that their primarch, Horus Lupercal, was the Emperor's favorite son, and as such, the Luna Wolves would participate in some of the most famous battles of the Great Crusade, including the Triumph of Olenor, that would not only see the orcs so devastated that the Imperium at large considered them little more than an occasional nuisance, but would see Horus ascend to the rank of War Master. The Luna Wolves during the Great Crusade were one of the few legions that did not have a major difference between the Terran-born Marines and those that reigned from their primarch's homeworld. While elements of the world of Chthonia would be present within their culture, they were all universally driven, ambitious, and charismatic. In many ways, the Luna Wolves were quite close to one another. For example, most legions had an advisory council for their primarch, but the Moraval, which in its last real incarnation had a young abaddon, Horus Aximand, or Little Horus, Tarek Torgadon, and Garviel Loken, were more than just advisors to Horus. Horus, as a person, thrived on social interaction and feedback, and while he was a confident individual, he was just as likely to fall prey to the negative personality traits that he had, just like anyone else. Horus needed the Mournival just as much as those within it would need him. And this personal dynamic of give and take and trust is one that every member of the Luna Wolves felt towards each other. They were more than just warriors, but they were also a brotherhood. They would ground each other and make sure that they were all performing to their optimal capacity, especially when some of their members would eventually give in to their well-deserved arrogance, along with boosting each other's confidence and making each other the best people they could possibly be. And seeing this in the books is honestly quite endearing. But the aforementioned pride that they often exhibited existed for a reason, as when it came to assault and devastating the enemy, there was no better option than the Luna Wolves. They were so successful, in fact, that they would succeed in bringing the most worlds into compliance during the Crusade, even beating out the legendary empire-building Ultramarines, with them only securing second place. And the main thing that allowed them to do this was the idea of the Spear Tip, a surgical assault designed to break the command elements of the enemy, cutting off the head of the Hydra, as it were, and then taking advantage of the confusion, mopping everything else up. And whether it was made up of Terminator assaults, Jump Pack Marines, or tactical squads and Devastator squads, these Spear Tip assaults would be able to pivot and change on a dime to fully allow them to achieve victory. However, nothing would last forever, as the final battle of the Luna Wolves as a legion would be the conflict with the Interrex, a human empire that, due to the intervention of the first chaplain of the Word-Bearers, Erebus, would end in disaster. And in the aftermath of these events, Horus would finally heed the calls to rename his legion from the Luna Wolves to that of the Sons of Horus. The Sons of Horus initially were little more than a palette swap of the Luna Wolves, effective, competent, and honorable. But after the disaster on the planet of Davin, the divisions that were created during this event, not only within the Legion but the Mournival itself, along with Horus falling to chaos, the Legion that would fall and begin to degrade into the den of traitors that would eventually storm the walls on Terra many years later. One of the main reasons this happened outside of Horus falling circles back to the machinations of Erebus and the Word-Bearers as a whole, as many legions began to adopt the Warrior Lodge. The Warrior Lodges were basically fraternities, ditching the formalities of rank and military structure in an effort to create brotherhood. And before the intervention of Erebus, these organizations existed all the way back during the Unification Wars, despite the Emperor decreeing these organizations were not to exist at all. But despite this, the lodges were one of the main reasons why the Luna Wolves were so effective and so close with each other. But this would get perverted once the Word-Bearers at large would begin to insert lodges within the various legions, leading to the lodges adopting traitorous sympathies, the influence of chaos, or both. And by the time of the Istvan III atrocity and the Drop Site Massacre, the bonds between the brothers that once fought together for 2 centuries were truly fractured, and the decline of the Sons of Horus into what they would become had began to take hold. The culture of the Lodge had fully replaced the culture of the Legion, with even the Lodge banners replacing the company banners in the Great Halls of the Vengeful Spirit. And as the years went on, the Sons of Horus would continue their brutal campaign of rebellion against the Imperium. But as this would go on, the cracks would begin to show. More within the Legion would become consumed by the lure of the ruinous powers, letting themselves become fully fully consumed and perverting their prowess and temperament and making them completely unhinged. This trend of many going from the ideas of discretion to brutality would be one that would continue more and more over the years, and by the time the Solar War was beginning to close and the Siege of Terra would begin, the Legion was entirely unrecognizable. Even worse was the fact that the Legion continued to fracture in on itself, as many within it would begin to pursue personal goals exclusively, moving more as warbands rather than actual legionnaires. This was only increased by the prolific use of inducti space marines, marines of lower quality that were mass-produced to fill suits of power armor. Little more than men jammed with lower quality implants, these inducti would comprise most of the Sons of Horus Legion by the end of the war, meaning the life of the Legion was quite literally bled out of it. The greatest degradation, though, however, was that of Horus himself. Once a charismatic and noble leader, Horus would continue to fall into the depths of the clutches of the foreruined his powers even more than he already had, with the injury given to him by Legion Russ even making him worse. Despite a lot of it being a ploy to further confuse and get ahead of the Emperor, Horus would still become entrenched within the Chaos Gods as they used him for their own ends, with him only realizing it after it was far too late. As a result of this, Ezekiel Abaddon would largely take the reins over for Horus, overseeing the command of the Legion and continuing to become more and more disillusioned with the state of it as time would go on. Seeing the state of Horus, his brothers, and everything else, he would become entirely apathetic towards the Legion and see it as little more than a failure. But in my opinion, the true shattering of the Sons of Horus came at the Siege of Gothonia. Initially proposed as a conflict to boost the morale of the Legion, it would soon dissolve into a war of attrition that would last until even after the Siege of Terra would end. The countless inducti would fight against the defending Imperial fists, as the veteran commanders would do their best to break down the walls and rescue their homeworld. This, however, would not last. The Dark Angels would descend onto the world, completely annihilating the planet and rendering it uninhabitable even 10,000 years later. The events at Gothonia and the Siege of Terra would not only break the morale of the Legion, but the heart, culture, and identity of it. And as time would go on, the Soulless Legion would be picked off one by the other traitors, as they saw the Sons of Horus as little more than the failures that got them to where they were. Thank you all very much for watching. If you want to learn more about the Sons of Horus, read the Horus Heresy Black Books, Betrayal and Massacre, as these give a really good look at the Legion at large. The first 3 Horus Heresy novels are a must though, along with the Solar War and Saturnine, which, by the way, I finally read Saturnine recently, and now I understand why everyone says how good this book is. And the most recent Age of Darkness rulebook gives a pretty decent summary of how the Legion is overall, and Chthonia's Reckoning is great and really shows how far the Legion had fallen, with short stories from both a loyalist and traitor perspective. Thank you all very much for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider becoming a member, and thank you very much to the YouTube members for supporting the channel. It really does mean a lot to me. And thank you very much to everyone for having us cross the 2,000 subscriber mark. It is incredibly heartwarming and endearing that you guys are enjoying these videos as much as I am making them. I feel like I've finally really started to hit my stride, and I'm finally finding my footing in regards to what I want to do with Warhammer lore tubing, and it is so heartwarming to see the positive response that I get every single day, whether it's people just joking around or just positive feedback. It is all seen, it is all heard, and it does mean the world to me. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you to each and every one of you for your support over the last 9 months, almost a year of doing this. It just means so much to me. Thank you all very much. Once again, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great night. Take care.